How are you keeping the law, the love of God, and the love of your neighbor as yourself? These two commands that Jesus gives us. How are you keeping those things at the forefront of your mind? Dun, 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 dun. How do you do it? Because you are doing it in some way, and it may be very effective. It may be really effective at the moment. You may be thinking that, yes, I wake up first thing in the morning, I go to sleep last thing at night, and all the way in between those two moments, the law of God is on my mind. It's somehow, I've got constant reference points to help me to keep going on the track that I've set. Yeah? You might be one of those who feels like this is really going really very well at the moment. I've got the law all around me. It is constantly being rehearsed in my heart, in front of my eyes. Are you with me? Is there someone in the room for whom this is true? Or maybe you're feeling it's not very effective at the moment. There's not enough stimulus. I'm being distracted by this, that, and the other. And the law of God is being distracted away from your mind or from your heart by other things. Okay, so the task of us is to follow this guidance from God, to find a way of helping the law to take root in our hearts. Does this make sense? You up for that? Yeah, that's good. I like your enthusiasm. There is this new group starting alongside. Now, there are different ways of doing this. A group just helps, doesn't it? Getting together with others helps. It's one of those moments, a routine helps. If you get together on a Sunday morning, this helps, doesn't it? We came with one set of stuff, and then we've already been taken somewhere else because of the words and the music and the baptism and the ritual of coming today has helped. It's alive. Although it's a tradition, actually this tradition is good for us, this routine, this weekly rhythm. A small group is another way of doing that. A formation group is another way of doing that. Phoning up people once a week is a good way of doing it. Having a reminder on your mobile phone is a good way of doing it. There are different ways of doing this thing. There's no law about how to do it, but the important is that we do it. Now, there's a new group starting. There are two new groups starting in a way. Alan is restarting a group on Thursday evenings, and Joy and I are starting a group which is going to happen fortnightly on Thursday evenings, called DNA, which stands for Discipleship, Nurture, and Accountability. And if you want to grow in your faith over the next 6 months, it's going to be a time-limited group, 6 months. And from June the 6th, every fortnight, you want to scrub out June every other week. Don't just scrub them out. Come along to our house. We're going to have supper at 7:30. And the task of this group is to keep you on track. So we're not going to, we will study the Bible, we will pray, we will worship, we will do those mixes of things that you do as a small group. But the purpose of this DNA group will be to say, how are we disciples of Jesus? What do we need next to help us on this journey? How do we establish a pattern of life that will mean that we keep going beyond the end of this group? Yeah? So it's a kind of forming group. It's a foundation group. It's a group that would help you reboot your kind of pattern of living, a rhythm of life. It's a group, if you're new to faith, that might be perfect for you, Sarah and Ian. So that you're new and you kind of want to get this pattern set up so that beyond, in 6 months' time, you're kind of like really, really flowing. It would be a great group for you. But it may be that you've been in Christian life for a long time and you need to repress the reboot button of your computer, as it were, and start all over again. And it might be perfect for you as well. So that's Thursdays fortnightly. Now, the other thing about this is that as well as being part of this group, to be part of this group, you also need to be part of a small triplet or foursome called a formation group, which will keep you in track in an even more personal way. So if you want to sign up for that, there are some leaflets at the back on the way. At the back. Now, the last few weeks, we have been journeying together, exploring the life of the Spirit, the life, the breath of God, the Spirit, the pneuma, the ruach, the breath of God. Or the stream, or the life, the water, the images of water, of life, of quenching thirst, of flowing through us. These are the two best images of the Spirit that we have, that God has given us. And here is a picture of the room that they gathered in Jerusalem while they waited for the Spirit. And the Spirit came and filled the room and descended upon each of them with different languages, and tongues descended on them, each one spreading like wildfire around the room, so that the languages kind of spread around the room, and it was like a wind that came around the room. And then it pushed them out of the room, out into the open air, so that they began to be witnesses. They had the power to be witnesses to the works that God had done. This is what we ask for when we pray for the Spirit to fall on Sarah. We are not just asking that Sarah's personal life will be affected. We are asking that Sarah will become a person through whom the Spirit will breathe, through whom the Spirit will flow, that she will become equipped with speech. Now, she did brilliantly. Did you see how she's done? She has overcome her fear of speech by getting some Aarons. Aaron is Moses' mate. You remember Moses? He had difficulty speaking. So he got an Aaron in. Got Aaron, his mate. He had lots of hair. Aaron. No, that's a terrible joke, isn't it? That is a terrible joke. And so you got Helen to speak for you, didn't you? But didn't she speak brilliantly? Weren't the words that she wrote down so powerful? There are words inside Sarah, just as there are words inside each of you, that the Spirit wants to release. And last week we heard from God, and I think this is quite clear, and Anna backed this up when she felt that the Spirit was there to release us. And if there are people still here feeling like they're tongue-tied, as it were, well, let's continue to pray into that. Let's see what God is doing, because I think God is wanting to release us so that we speak more freely and naturally about him without fear, just as in the early days. May the spirit of tongues fall upon us. Send us out, we pray, in the power of your Spirit, and I've added this, to speak boldly about Jesus. Now, you may be praying for 5 people already. You may have forgotten to be praying for 5 people already. You may have thought I was praying for 5 people. But maybe now's the time to get your list of 5 people out and to pray, God, how might I speak of you with these 5 people? You're not asking me to be weird or to say silly things or to get all pushy on them, but how would you, Jesus, want me to speak to my 5? Do I need to give them a call? Do I need to chat to them? What's the best way of speaking to my 5? Okay. The other thing I felt that very strongly, and I was, and I kind of sensing the pull of the Spirit, and in a way, I have to be honest. There's a heaviness in my heart. It's an emotion. I'm not quite sure what words to put on it, which is why I'm hesitating. But it's not an anxiety, but there's a heaviness on me about family life at the moment. And I feel like God is drawing me into this emotion for a reason. I feel like it's coming from him. It's not just me, and it's coming in lots of different ways. We were praying together as a staff team, and just as we prayed the other day, suddenly we all started praying about family life again together. And so there's something in the air at the moment that I feel, I'm wondering whether God is calling us to as a community, as a family, into this idea of us being a family together. I was chatting to someone just a little while ago who had gone to a church and had discovered that there were cliques when she went to this church. And you remember at the AGM, I said, we won't permit cliques in this church. That's the antithesis of family life, isn't it? We mustn't be cliques. So a clique, small groups of people who keep them cliques. Cliques or cliques. Yeah, exactly that. So we must be a family without cliques. And we are called, I think, to reach out to family and also to strengthen families. So I've been mulling on this, and one of the ways I thought we'd do this is to help those who have small children. Now, we have had a growing number of kids, and you can feel the life coming into the place, but we need to really support those with small children so that they can hear. One of the frustrations that I'm hearing is that people are coming, parents are coming, and feeling frustrated that there's nowhere that they can leave their child safely and securely without being anxious about it. So they're staying with their child rather than participating. Now, there are some grandparents in the room, or people who used to be parents, for whom an under 2-year-old is not the most scary thing in the world. You can cope with their reality. You know, they are not. You may be worried about 16-year-olds doing youth work with Luke, and you may be worried about 9-year-olds 7-year-olds, but 1-year-olds you can handle. Would you commit to being a 1-year-old carrier, a 1-year-old player, a 1-year-old dancer, whatever, train track driver, a story reader? Would you support by being part of the creche once a month or once every 6 weeks? We need people. Are there inner hands rising as I'm talking? If so, let me or Kate know, and we'll put you on a rota so that you can do that. Because there is no age. You can't be too old to be one of those people, can you? I'm looking around at our oldest members of the church here. You can't be too old to hold a 1-year-old, can you? Well, I don't think so. Maybe there are other ideas of what God is doing among us that are about family life, about us connecting with people who are part of families, healing broken families. Stories of us mending fences and doing gardens is one thing, but also relating to people with babysitting or meals when people have babies. Those are the kind of things we've done already, but maybe there are other things going on in our hearts right at the moment about how we can help people who are part of families. I'm really interested to know, because I don't feel like this is a Richard thing. I think this is an us thing. I think the Spirit of God is speaking to us at the moment about families. And which means that if that's true, that he'll be speaking to you about families, and it will be an us thing. It won't be a Richard thing. It will be a you and me thing. So I'm sure that you've got ideas, parenting groups, support groups, I don't know, something going on in your heart. Wouldn't it be good if we did this? Or what would it be like if we could do this, or relate to the school in this way? Or, there'll be something that you feel that you want to bring to the story. And just going back, one thought was that we could spend some time over the next few weeks helping parents by looking at the questions that kids ask about God, answering them so that when they ask the questions, we have some ideas. Now, here are the questions we're going to look at on Sunday mornings over the next few weeks. How do I know God is real when I can't see him? I've done some research. I went to the school and started asking them about God. What colour is God's toothbrush was one I haven't put up here, but these are the deeper questions behind. How do I know God is real when I can't see him? Where do people go when they die? Does God know everything? Why does God let bad things happen? What difference does prayer make? Does God love me even when I do bad things? Is the Bible really true? Now, these are questions from the lips of children, but I don't know if you've noticed, they're also in your heart as well. I mean, aren't they the biggest questions? Aren't they the most... I mean, those are the questions we'd all like the answer to, wouldn't we, really? Those are fantastic questions. Now, we're going to take those over the next few weeks. So next week, Kate is going to do the first one. How do I know God is real when I can't see him? And then we're going to follow on through. Now, the reason of doing that together is that we might help each other as parents or as disciplers of children know some of this stuff. But you can see how this will help us. If we get it right for our children, we will get it right for ourselves. It'll be fantastic. So you with me on journeying through those over the next few weeks? What I want you to do very briefly now is just chat to the person next to you. Family. What does it mean to you? You can answer this question any way whatsoever. Family. What does it mean to you? 1, 2, 3, go. Let's draw it together. That's great. Well done. Now, some of you, I was playing this through in my head, imagining what you might chat about. I'm not going to get you all to feedback your answers, but I imagine that some of you might talk about the task of being family, the things that families do. What does family mean? Immediately, it came out of your mouth. Cooking was the answer there. What does family mean to you? Cooking. Always cooking. But others, did anyone else do tasks? And then others of you would have talked about the feelings that family brings out. I talked about, with Lawrence, we talked about support and also heartache. That there's an emotion involved in that. Linked to that, you might have found yourself talking to an experience. What does family mean to you? And it would have immediately brought you to an experience which was either painful or brilliant. A really good experience, family, or a really bad experience, family. And you may have shared that. So, I mean, there may have been loads of other things, but that was kind of my idea, that there would be a whole range of different things. Experiences, tasks, feelings, emotions. It's actually the more you think about your family, the harder it gets, this thing. Which is why probably we tend not to talk about family as a church, because actually this thing is so big and so difficult for us to handle, we'd rather keep on to safer ground, such as the Holy Spirit or the Bible, or what did Jesus mean when he said this or that, or how do we pray? But don't talk about family, because family, well, that's difficult. You with me? Does that make sense? I fear that talking about family, I'm going to make a mistake. That you're going to hear me say something that is going to push a button in you. You're going to go, flipping, just can't believe he said that. Because this is tender ground. Hearts are tender around these issues, aren't they? Is it a place of blessing, was another question. Now, you've just seen it. Family, a place of blessing, question mark? What was your first thought? Yes or no? Inside that. Is it a place of blessing? We'd all like to say yes, but for many of us, family has not been a place of blessing. What about this? Marriage, linked to family, not exactly the same, but linked. Marriage, a place of blessing. Ooh. Now, I know that you know that Tori's in the room, so obviously the answer is yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's right. Now, these are the words. It's not very easy. It is quite hard, isn't it, Pauline? Thank you for voicing what I think everyone else in the room was. They will all be going amen to that. Now, this is what I did a marriage yesterday, and the place was full of beautifully dressed people. And the couple were standing at the front, kneeling on the cushion. And this is the words I read out. Marriage is a gift of God in creation. This is what I read out every wedding at the beginning of the service. These are brilliant words that have come down through history, and they've ended up like this. Marriage is a gift of God in creation, through which husband and wife may know the grace of God. It is given that as man and woman grow together in love and trust, they shall be united, no longer two people driving in different cars, arriving in different places at different times, but they may become united into one person, two becoming one, in heart, body, and mind. In heart, in body, and mind. We all know people who are married in their hearts. They're united at their hearts, but they're not married in their bodies. They're united, or they're connected at their minds, but they're not united at their heart. The image that God has given us is of two people who are connected in all three, heart, body, and mind together. Now, all of us will know experiences in our own lives where less than that has happened. But this is what marriage is for. And I go on to say this: the gift of marriage brings husband and wife together in two ways. It brings husband and wife together in the delight and tenderness of sex. I've said it in church on a Sunday morning. In the delight and tenderness of sex. Don't you love these words? Delight, yes. Tenderness, yes. Tenderness, I love it. The tenderness of sexual union. And joyful commitment to the end of their lives. In this bit, they have woven together sex and commitment together. You'll see under one heading. A gift of marriage brings husband and wife together for sex and commitment. These things, sex and commitment, come together. This is the Christian worldview. This is how we perceive God having ordained the world, made the world, so that this is how it functions. That husband and wife may come together and enjoy sex in its delight and tenderness, but also with commitment to the end of their lives. It is given. I also say this: marriage is given as the foundation of family life. The foundation of family life. People tell me I've done it the wrong way round. People tell me they've done it the wrong way round. Why? Because I think there is something in us that knows that there is a foundational order of how to bring up a family. To be committed and connected to each other first, and then to be a family, is the better way round, is the God-ordained way round. It has given us the foundation of family life, in which children are born and nurtured, and in which each member of the family, in good times and in bad, may find strength, companionship and comfort, and grow to maturity in love. This is the ideal, and on a day like yesterday when the sun is shining and everyone is dressed and perfectly looking great, it looks like we could do this thing. The day after, the morning after, here we are gathered, and we know that there is a different story to tell, is there not? About how we have done this thing or not done this thing. Those were our dreams, and something else has happened along the way. Because we all know that we are broken people, all sinful, all somehow struggling with the realities of sin, the world, and the devil that we're fighting so valiantly against. And I think in our culture, this is the question I'm asking day after day, week after week, on the news at the moment. I am wondering whether we as a culture are giving up on the idea of marriage or the ideal of marriage. Whether we no longer believe that it's actually possible or doable, so we are now leaving it to one side. Let's just live together. Let's just be committed to each other. Let's just say to each other in the privacy of our own hearts, not even say it out loud, let's just be together. I wonder if we've lost confidence in this idea of marriage. What do you think? I think God would say that our marriages and our families are foundations upon which to build society and life together. If there is one problem that I see, that when people say, what are the issues in Twerton, I would say, it always seems to come down to one thing. I would say families. Families. The healing of families. Which is why we get Deuteronomy chapter 6. These are the commands and decrees the Lord your God is directing me to teach you to observe. As you cross from Jordan into the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, so that you may enjoy life. If you want to have life, then pass these things on to your children, your children's children. Create a culture that gets passed on. Family is the foundation of life in this story that we are given, that we inhabit. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. So therefore, impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands. Bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates. The primary discipling role for our children is given to parents. And there are no perfect parents in the room, if there are any parents in the room at all. We have been commissioned by God to impress something upon our children so that life would go well with them and their children's children. Now, I'm touching things, aren't I, in us? Touching realities in my heart and in our hearts together. Family is the foundation for life. I have this idea that it links to the group, but it seems as if they've just collided this week. DNA. 50% of my DNA is my dad's, 50% precisely 50% is my mum's. There is no way around it. Although sometimes my personality looks a little bit more like my mum than it does my dad, but actually 50% of my genes are my dad's and my mum's. Physically, I'm 50-50. It's just that my brother is also 50-50. He's just got a different bit of their 50-50, and they're mixed up in a different way, and so my sister. So we're all different, but we're 50-50, mum and dad. DNA is passed on completely through your family. All of us have a father and a mother. We have physical DNA, but we also have what I would call spiritual DNA. That we have some role, parents have some role of passing on something. And you will have inherited something from your mum or your dad. And it may be very positive, it may be very negative. A spiritual component to how they grew you up. Now, grew you up. I talk proper, me. How they grew you up. See, I don't know, who do I blame? My mum or my dad for that kind of stuff? My spiritual DNA affects us. Now, I'm wondering, to us as a church family, thinking about the children that we have around us, this DNA might be helpful for us to think in the following ways, that there is a role for us to disciple children. And I would say primarily that goes to the parents who spend most of their time, more of their time than any other person in the room with their children. It would be wrong for parents to delegate that role to the church because the church only spends an hour with them at best. Maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, but the primary time the most time is spent with your mum or your dad, isn't it? The forming time. So it means that it has to be. So we as a church, our primary way of discipling children is not to put on creches or to put on Sunday schools or to put on youth work, but to support parents, isn't it? That would make sense to me. I'm pointing at Ben over there as a representative parent. I don't know why I was picking on him over there, but I don't know. There you go, Ben. You've become representative parent today. But we must support Ben in his role as a parent to his 2 boys. Marriage is a uniquely well-placed environment to make disciples. Let me just watch this video together.
And when you think of the marriage between a man and a woman who are believers as being a forum for Great Commission ministry, I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind. If you have these 2 sinners who by nature are self-sovereigns, who have little interest of doing anything in life but building their own kingdom, who will co-opt the other person to live for their kingdom and who will beat them up if they don't. And if they're now living in a relationship of real unity, real love, willing self-sacrifice, you're seeing the kingdom come. It has come in this marriage. There are few places where you can better invite people in to see the king at work and see how his kingdom operates than in a marriage. Because typically, you don't have unity and understanding and love. You have power battles, you have lists that people are keeping against one another, you have bitterness and acrimony, and at some point people think, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard, it's too painful. And so if you have long-term unity, long-term love, long-term understanding for people, you're seeing God at work, and you can invite people in to experience what the kingdom of God looks like and what it is and does.
The point he's making is there's something about lifelong committed relationship called marriage that disciples children in and of itself. Interesting point. The best way to make, I read this week, the best way to make new generation of disciples is to grow them in Christian families. If we can support families that are Christians, that have Jesus at the center, where the mother and the father together worship this Jesus, we will create a generation of strong, wholehearted disciples. Now, I want to say that there is no guarantee for any of this, but let's just watch this short little video too.
My job is, as a parent, is not only to teach my children, these are the things you're supposed to do, but teach my children that they're supposed to be part of God's mission as well. It's not just that I raise obedient children, I want to raise kingdom-minded children as well. And so we want to have that conversation early, that our home doesn't belong to us. Our possessions don't belong to us. This is not our little private domain where we shut the door and we shut the world out and we do all the selfish things we want to do. But even our most private spaces belong to the Lord. They belong for His use. Your toys don't belong to you, but they belong to God. They're there for His use. How can we use the good things that you have to bless and minister to others? So that mentality that all of this belongs to the Lord. I think the best prayer for a family to pray is this: your kingdom come, your will be done. Not our kingdom come, our will be done. Your kingdom come, your will be done right here, right now, in this house. Right here, right now, in this toy room. Right here, right now, in this marriage. And from day one, develop, disciple that mentality into your children.
Okay. Discipleship, creating disciples by being disciples. I was discipled primarily by my mum and my dad. I have been given the spiritual DNA of my parents. There are, as I know from my own experience, no guarantees. There are no guarantees. I'll say it again, there are no guarantees. And we also have to watch the spirit of failure that comes over us. God's love is bigger than our failure. The story of the family, the people of Israel, is a story of repeated failure, and yet God's love always being bigger than that failure. Of Him wooing His family back to Himself in order to restore them into a different way of being. Discipleship, though, however, is a goal for us. And we know that we can do some things that will make a difference to the way that we grow up another generation. So discipleship. The second is nurture. And it's slightly different from discipleship in tone or manner. And I'm wondering about nurture. How do we nurture children? How do we create environments on Sunday morning that nurtures them? In what way was what we just did, is that right, grammar? The baptism that we just did together, what we just done, in what way did that nurture children into the life of Christ? By bringing them forward to communion. How are we nurturing them into the life of Christ that they can receive the bread of Christ, the bread of Jesus? And how can we nurture their minds and their thinking and their behaviors? How can we nurture them as parents, but also as a family together? And lastly, accountability. My family were ruthless on this one. How about your family? Around the table was the moment we were all brought back in line. When my dad missed he wasn't quite as perfect as he wanted to present, he was brought back in line. When my mum said something that she shouldn't have done, she was brought back in line. When my brothers behaved in a certain way, we brought them back in line. That's what families do, isn't it? We are brutally good at this. We hold each other to account. Why? Because there is a way that our family does stuff. And when you break that way of being, the family will bring you back in line. It's what a family is good for. It's why we were given families. And a family is better than someone else doing it. We don't like other people speaking into our families, which is why when brothers and sisters start having other people coming in and bringing other people, girlfriends and boyfriends, into their family, and they start destroying the family with their opinions about how life should be lived, we find it really uncomfortable and difficult because we have a way of doing it and we have a way of bringing our brother down. And what do you mean just because you're fiancé now to her, you have a right to tell me off for telling my brother that's how I talk to my brother? You with me on this? Does this kind of make sense? Now, how about we as a family, seeing ourselves as a family who hold each other to account? If we don't hold each other to account as a family, who else will? If we don't hold our children to account, who else will? I think these are helpful ways of us thinking about us together as a family. As we journey through the next few weeks together, I think the Spirit will be stirring us up more and more as we explore this together. These are my points today. Let me finish with this. Family is the foundation for life. Physical life, but whole life. For life. We need family. Family is the foundation for discipleship. Commit to it. Let us as a church commit to seeing family as a primary way that we will make disciples in this community. Family is good for all of us, whether we are old, whether we are young, whether we are children, whether we are single, whether we are adults, whether we are old. Whatever age we are, we need family. Family is good, and without family, we will all suffer. Family is good for all of us. So the question that's left to us as a church to discern from the Spirit is, how can we best support families? And how will you buy into that vision together? You up for that? Is that enough of a taster for that? Shall we stand, and then we're going to pray and ask God to help us.